Alrighty, my prompt is it ethical for video game developers to depict real-life tragedy in video games? And I would argue that yes, it is. Even though I believe it's ethical, there should be some line that should not be crossed. It mostly is difficult to understand where that line is, but I would say that because tragedy affects everyone differently, there is no real formula to where you can determine as to where the line is crossed. So whether or not a line is crossed is up to the player or person viewing the game. With knowing this, I'll try to focus on a couple of games and rationalize why I think that their depiction of real-life tragedies is ethical or not. Before we get into the games, let's define two ways a tragedy can affect someone. Broad tragedy and personal tragedy. A broad tragedy is a tragedy that can affect everyone, like the assassination of influential public figures like John F. Kennedy or Dr. King. War, like World War II and Vietnam. Terrorist attacks, like 9/11 and the AT&T bombing. Personal tragedy is a tragedy that affects people more close to that tragedy. So, loved ones of the people who died on 9/11. And these two ways people can be affected by tragedy is not mutually exclusive. They can happen at the same time. JFK Reloaded is a simulator game that came out in 2004. It was made to accurately recreate John F. Kennedy's assassination, according to the Warren Commission. In the game, you play as Lee Harvey Oswald, and you have to miss your first shot, ricochet it off the car in the second shot. You have to hit John F. Kennedy in the shoulder, and then you have to headshot John F. Kennedy with your last shot. And even though the graphics are kind of limited for 2004, it's unsettling. On release, it got lambasted by multiple public figures, mainly people who were related to Kennedy and people who worked close with Kennedy. It had been like 41 years since John F. Kennedy's assassination, but he still had immediate living relatives, so the personal tragedy still affected them. Maybe if this game got released a couple years later, maybe after the 50th anniversary of John F. Kennedy's assassination, instead of the 41st, it could have been more accepted by the general public. I think Traffic Games made this game for a good purpose. It's mostly to dispel conspiracy and to teach those who otherwise wouldn't have cared. The one thing about this game that crosses the line for me isn't actually in the game, but what Traffic Games did to get people to play this game. They made a competition to recreate the assassination as accurately as possible to the Warren Commission, and the winner would receive up to $100,000. 846 is a VR simulator game where you play as a worker in the North Tower of the World Trade Center. If you're unaware, 8:46 a.m. is when the first plane hit the North Tower on its north side. The game doesn't have you control a specific person, but it does put you in the place of somebody who would spend their last moments in the North Tower. You can't see the first plane hit the North Tower, but you can see the hijacked 757 strike the South Tower. The player is on the 101st floor, and you can't go down the stairs because, well, on the plane crash. So either they suffocate, represented by the screen turning black, or they jump. I think 846's purpose was to give players a similar experience to what happened in the towers as they fell. Many who had loved ones die in the attacks expressed disgust with the creators of the game. Personally, though, I believe there's quite a bit to gain from this game. Being that 846 is a VR game, it allows you to really engross yourself into what the victims might have faced on 9/11. So, I think there are a couple games that are sort of unjustifiable in their depiction of real-life tragedy. VTech Rampage, which is based off of the Virginia Tech shooting. It came out like a couple weeks after, and it's really just following every single step of Sung Hyo Cho. That is not how you pronounce it. Anyway, when you play the game, you literally just kill other university students. But while you're killing those university students, there's an announcer in the background that's just pumping you up, I guess. I don't know how to, phrase it. There are other games, like The Slaying of Sandy Hook, which, offers a little bit of a message. It has like a normal mode where you actually run through the shooting of Sandy Hook. And there's also a couple other modes. There's a gun control mode, although you really just don't have access to guns if you have access to a sword. There's also a mode where the teachers also have guns, but then again, I can't really say that the message is worthwhile, seeing as how not only are you actually killing children, you're also getting rated off of how closely you've replicated the original school shooting. While I don't think these games are good, I do think they should still be around, mostly because they do have a little bit of value to them, even if it's just to show that, not everyone values human life or other people's feelings like everyone else.